Hello and welcome back to Bits and Bobs. Now if you live in England or the UK, then I'm sure you'll recognise this handful of coins in my hand, as this is the current change in use in 2024 in the Great British Isles. However, did you know back in the day, a handful of change used to look like this, with silver and gold in it rather than just these ones we have today. It was more, precious metal in the handfuls of coins that we had in our change. In today's video, we'll be comparing the new and the old styles of coins and going back in time from today, 2024, all the way back to 1817 and the Great Recoinage, looking at how a handful of change has changed over that time. So let's begin here with today's money and count our way back, looking at all the changes of the coins that happened during this time. Now, one quick thing to mention, we won't be talking about the designs of the coins. There have been many designs of the same denomination. We'll be only talking about the size or the composition of the coin changing, or the entire denomination being added or removed through history. So, with all that said, let's now begin to go through the history of a handful of change in Britain and work away from the modern coins of today back to the old coins of right back to 1817, as I say. So let's begin with the modern coins of today. So here we have a handful of change today. And going back in time, the first thing you find as we go back in time, in 2016, we remove the 12-sided pound coin, and before that we have the old style round pound coin many of you will remember. As we go further back in time, the next coin to be removed, we go back now to 1997, is the £2 coin. The £2 coin today is a bimetallic coin, but before 1997, it was no longer bimetallic, and back then it was in fact a single metal, quite a thick coin actually if you look there, nice thick, chunky, single metal £2 coin. That wasn't the only change that year though, of 1997, as that was the year we first saw the introduction of this smaller 50p, the ones we have today, as we go back in time. Before that may have a larger one. It is much larger, it is 13 grams rather than 8 grams, and much thicker as well. So going back in time now, we remove that smaller one and have a larger 50p piece in circulation. Similarly, in 1992, the 10 pence was downsized, so there's the small one we have today, and going back in time now to the older one, we have a new pence there, much larger 10 pence piece than the ones of today. And that was in 1992. And then go back in further in time to 1990, the same thing happened to the 5 pence piece, the small sort of tiny 5 pence piece we have today, very small, but before 1990, it was a much larger one, as we can see there. So there we are. So there were much larger coins for the start of decimalization, but more recently they have been shrunk down. Going back to the 1980s, we see more change for change, as this coin, the £2 coin, was only introduced in 1986, so before then we no longer see it. And the pound coin, introduced in 1983, before then they used pound notes, so again we remove that as we go further back in time. And then in 1982, that was the year of introduction for the 20 pence, so before 1982, as we go further back in time, we now see the removal of the 20 pence. So there we go, that's a handful of change in around 1980, and although the design doesn't matter too much, I'll swap out the design for those, so we can see there we are. This is how it would have looked, the real designs that were used, with new pence on the coins, as they're all fairly new here, in the late 70s, this is how a handful of change would have looked. However, there is one coin that would have been here as well, that was removed from circulation in 1983, so before then we would have had the new penny, so this is a decimal halfpenny, used from 1971 to 1983 in our change, so there we go. That is the first set of decimal coins from 1971 up till 1982, when things began to change again. And there we go, there are 6 coins, it's not a massive variety, no precious metal, and 6 coins used in this time. But now a huge change comes as we move before 1971 and decimalization. And so there we go, if you lived in sort of 1960 or so, this would have been the handful of change you'd have had in your pocket at the time. All of these silvery looking coins are not silver, they are copper and nickel, we're not far enough back yet for them to be silver. You have, of course, the penny, and although this is a Victorian one, I did say design don't matter, but actually, this is accurate because Victorian pennies are still very, very common to find, even up till the late 60s. So there we go. Now, what changes happened to this? Well, the biggest change, of course, is the composition change in 1947. So before 1947, this half crown would no longer be copper and nickel. It would be better, in many people's opinion, as it would be 50% silver within the coin. That's the same for all of these in that year of 1947. Before then, they would have been actual silver. Let's get rid of these copper and nickel ones and bring in the actual silver coins, as we can see here. There we go. And just for a rundown of the denominations, for those wondering, if you can't see them as well, you have a farthing, which is a quarter of a penny, a halfpenny, which is a half of a penny, we then have a 3p. At the time, there are 2 varieties of 3p, a 50% silver one and the 12-sided bronze one, or brass one, sorry. We then have a 6p, a shilling, which is 12 pence, so 2 sixpences, a florin, which is 2 shillings, and then a half crown, which is 2 shillings and 6 pence, 2 and 6. So there we go. Now, before 1937, this coin didn't exist, and there's just the one style of 3p that was brought in 1937. So we'll say goodbye to that as we move further back in time. And then the next change is again a compositional change, as all the compositions changed or were changed from sterling silver to 50% silver in 1920. So as we go back in time and past 1920, let's change these 50% ones for sterling ones, 92.5% solid silver in the coinage. And so there we go. Before 1920, all of our coins had sterling silver in. If they looked silver, they were. And again, we have the three there of the bronze coins: the farthing, the halfpenny, and the penny, and the same denominations: the 3p, the 6p, the shilling, the florin, and the half crown. So there we go. As we're going backwards in time, now we come to the First World War. And before the First World War, that's right, we had, as well as silver in our change, gold. There was real gold coins in British change before World War I. There were two gold denominations. We have here the half sovereign, and there was also the gold full sovereign. I do not have one to show you in my hand sort of loose. I do have this. It's a more modern one, my only full sovereign, 1980 sovereign. So just sort of to represent there. That would have been the change back in the day. There were many denominations. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different denominations of coins to use in change. But there were more. Going backwards in time still, all the compositions stayed the same now as sterling silver, and this is 917, so 22 karat gold, staying the same right back until the Great Recoinage in 1817. That's as far back as we're going today. There's no more composition changes. So although that's a lot of denominations, there were in fact more. If we go back to the late 1800s, around 1900 they were stopped, but before then we had silver crowns, right back until 1818, so all the way back right to the Great Recoinage really. There was in circulation and in use lovely big silver crowns again, as with all these coins, as I say, sterling silver. So a nice lump there of sterling silver. A big 5 shilling piece was a crown, so that would be 2 half crowns, of course, for the crown, 5 shillings. And there's there even room on my hand for all these denominations now. There we go. And there's even more, because only for a few years, but between 1887 and 1890, there was a double florin coin. As you may have guessed, double florin, worth 2 florins, so 4 shillings, so just a bit less than the 5 shillings of the crown. It was not a liked or very popular denomination at all, so it was scrapped after only 4 years, but for a while we did have another denomination in the form of a 4 shilling coin or a double florin. Now there we go, look at that. There's now 12 different denominations you could have had in this era, and this is around the late 1800s, around 1890 or so. This would have been what your handful of change looked like. And as a cool bit of information, the crown, the double florin, the sovereign, and the half sovereign are all still a legal tender. Half of a sovereign, half a pound. That's 50p today, a pound today. This is 1/5 of a pound back then, and it is today, so 20 pence. 1/4 of a pound, so still today, 25 pence. All still legal tender, but they were scrapped. They weren't really used back then, past the turn of the century, so of course they're not used today, or even less so used today, and probably would not be accepted. Anyway, so there we go. Now, moving further back in time, so going back before 1887, we can remove this coin that was not produced back then. And the next big change is, of course, as you may have guessed, the bronze recoinage of 1860, changing, of course, these bronze coins. So before 1860, the bronze coinage was, of course, not issued, as it was first issued in 1860. So we'll remove those. And in fact, there were different copper coins that didn't just look copper, but they were, in fact, 100% copper. So let's reshuffle the hand and add in the copper coins of before 1860. So there we go. Removing those bronze coins, we can now add in the older style copper coins. So we have, again, the same denominations. We have the farthing here. These are all larger, as well as being copper. We have as well, of the farthing, the halfpenny. And again, these are nice big copper coins with the young head of Queen Victoria in this era. And then finally, to add, of course, is the penny. And these are lovely, massive coins. These are 34 millimeters in diameter, so larger, much larger than the half crown, and really thick, chunky old big copper coins that were used in Victoria's reign before the 1860 recoinage. So there we go. And that's how a handful of change will look like in around 1855. And before 1855, as you go back further in time, there was another denomination to add to the mix in the form of the groat, as we can see here. This is an 1843 one. Again, young head Victoria, and the groat is worth, as it says on there, 4p. They're very similar to the 3p, and we have both of them there, the 3p and the 4p. Very nice. Now, also in the 1840s, there were more denominations to add, so I might have to reshuffle the hand once again and come back with even more denominations to add. In the lovely, this is my favourite era of coinage now, the 1840s, and so really great variety, really big coins, silver coins, gold coins, really great stuff to have in your hand, rather than just sort of, coins of today. Okay, so for those of you saying in the comments that I forgot about the florin, I have just remembered it, so I've got a little bit ahead of myself with the groat, so let's remove that for now, go back to 1850. In 1849, we're going before 1849 as we go backwards, we would lose the florin. It was first issued here in 1849 and was changed from this godless design, which is slightly bit smaller in diameter, to a larger style, which was the Gothic florin, as we can see here. That would have been used after, and this was from 1851 onwards. So going back in time now, we will lose the florin. That is now gone from our handful. And then we can see, well, we can introduce the groat here in 1843, but not quite yet, because also before the florin, the half farthing, which is that new denomination I was mentioning, there we go, let's focus it. The half farthing was in fact not issued in 1840s, it was actually issued in 1856. So going back in time, we'd add the half farthing there, and the half farthing would have spent a little bit of time circulating alongside the florin. So that's 1856, a handful then. Then, going backwards before 1856, or 1850, we remove the florin. Going back into the 1840s, we can now add the groat in, or rather the 1850s. So around that time, there's lots of change going on in the coinage. But here's how it would have looked at the start of the reign of Queen Victoria. We had, at the start of her reign, a half farthing, worth half of a farthing, which is worth half of a halfpenny, worth half of the penny. We then had the 3p, worth 3p, 4p, worth 4p, 6p, worth 6p, a shilling, worth 2 sixpences, no florin at the start of our reign. So straight from the shilling to the half crown, which I'm also missing now, so I'll grab one of those. There we go, from the shilling, to the half crown. Apologies for that. Then from the half crown to the crown, then from the crown to the half sovereign, and from the half sovereign to the sovereign. So there we go. That is a handful of change at the beginning of the reign of Queen Victoria. We had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 denominations, varying in sizes, compositions, and of course weights, with copper coins, silver coins, and gold coins. So it's nice sort of, standard metals, just copper, silver, gold, used in the coins. Very, very nice indeed. But of course, now we go further back into the reign of the previous monarch, William IV. During his reign, the smaller silver coins were introduced, that is to say, the 3p was introduced in the 1830s, and so going back before that, we will remove the 3p, and the 4p was introduced in 1836, so going back before 1836, we will remove the 4p or the groat. Other than that, the coins stayed the same. But what I'll do is I'll update the coins with the coins that would have been used at the time, as of course we're now in the 1830s, so I'll get an older crown, and so on. So let's swap the coins out for William IV, a handful of coins at the beginning of his reign. Right, so there we are. Here's what a handful of change would have looked like in around the year 1832 or 1833, the early 1830s. We had, of course, these small copper coins, the half farthing, halfpenny, and penny. Then there's no smaller denominations in silver than the 6p. They've got the 6p there, the shilling, then to the half crown, to the crown, half sovereign, and sovereign. There we go. Now moving back into the reign of King George IV, the half farthing was actually introduced in 1828 at the end of George IV's reign. So going back before that, we can remove the half farthing to having the coins look like this. It was also in the reign of King George IV that this, about to lose a half sovereign there, this style of coin was brought out, the sort of standardized Britannia design farthing, halfpenny, and penny. Before then, that would have been used around the time of the Great Recoinage with larger coins. This is the farthing, as you can see, a bit larger there than this style here of the George IV style. So we'll swap that out as you go past the 1822 to 1825 was when that sort of happened. We have an older style of penny, again a little bit larger. That one has got a hole in. That is the George III one rather than the George IV one. And then finally, the halfpenny there, the same thing. This one is removed as we go before 1825 onto the older style here. This one is a King George III one. There we go. And although there were no changes to the composition, the weight, the size, the shape of the crown, 6p, and shilling, Let's swap them out for some older ones around the time of the end of the reign of George III and get to our final handful and have a look at a handful of coins on the day of the Great Recoinage and how things would have changed. And if you want us to do a video on coins before then, please do comment down below. But for now, let's get our final handful of coins from the year 1819. That's at the year 1819. What would a handful of your coinage look like? Let's get it going. And so here we go. A handful of change over 200 years ago in around 1819. Now this is a lovely showing of coins here. You'll have to excuse a bit of a later. This is a Victoria half sovereign and an Elizabeth sovereign, but I don't have any earlier ones of those gold coins, so you have to excuse that. But otherwise, you have the right designs here. The same design there for the shilling and sixpence. And I will say, I think it was a good call. You can see here for the florin, we've got 2 small silvers and 2 large silvers. So the florin, which would be in between, in my opinion, was a good call. We then got the half sovereign and sovereign, for the higher purchases, big gold coins, and then some of the older copper coins that were used there before the new sort of more standardized ones are brought out in later years. And of course, this is all standardized from 1817, the sovereign and half sovereign, and all these, a crown weighs a crown weighs double a half crown, a shilling weighs double a sixpence, and so on. It's all done by weight, all standardized, so very nice, and I think that was a good thing for George III to do, as his sort of last act as monarch really was the Great Recoinage at the end of his reign, sorting out the coinage to this lovely coins, and all the weights of the crown, the half crown, the shilling, the sixpence, the sovereign, the half sovereign, they never changed. They were set and standardized for the rest of pre-decimal coinage. So there we go. Now you have to comment down below, do you prefer the older handful of coins, as like this one, or do you prefer the handful of coins that you could have today? So yeah, please do comment down below the best era for a handful of coins. What era would you like to have lived in to have a handful of coins from back then? And for my answer for that question, it's probably the 1850s, as there was just quite a lot of variety then. There's some really nice coins in the 1850s, in my opinion. So there we go. Please do leave a like on this video if you've enjoyed, as it took a long time to make, and subscribing on this video and liking it will really help us out and be very appreciated. Thank you for watching as always, and we'll see you again soon for some more coins in the future on Bits and Bobs. Goodbye for now.